The number one asset for any counselor or therapist in private practice is their website. Your website will be your number one referral source. And if the idea of creating a website just makes you want to run and hide or pull your hair out, there is a solution. Brighter Vision is the number one resource for helping therapists create and build beautiful professional websites that work. In fact, counselor and therapist websites are all they do. It's what they specialize in. Not only will they help you build your website, but they will be there with you for the long haul with unlimited tech support. They do all the hard stuff like search engine optimization and making sure your website is mobilely responsive. In other words, it works on cell phones and mobile phones. Not only that, the website is customized to you. So for just $59 a month, so if you think about it, for $59, which would be about what you would get for just one session, it would pay for itself. $59 a month, and you can have a website that works for you and brings in referrals. So go over to practiceoftherapy.com/brightervision and see how they can help get a custom professional website going for you. And if you'll use the coupon code Gordon, just GORDON, all in caps, you can get your first month free. This is the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer. This is session number 29 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. Hello, folks. I'm your host, Gordon Brewer, and thanks again for joining me in this episode of the Practice of Therapy podcast. If this is your first time with us, I'm so glad you've joined us in this journey, and I hope that this information is going to be helpful for you and that you're going to be able to learn a lot from it. And also, for those of you that have been following me for a while and been on the podcast, thanks for your support and thanks for being there. I was looking at my stats this weekend, and I realized when I looked at them, I've had over 3,000 downloads of this podcast. Wow, I never would have guessed would have had that many so quickly. I just started the podcast back in August of 2017, and it's been a great thing. I'm just getting to meet all kinds of great people and learning about all kinds of new stuff myself in my own journey. And I'm just so glad that you've joined me today for the podcast. In today's podcast, I've got two special people. It's the first time I've done one of the episodes where I've interviewed two people at the same time, and we worked through the technology of it and managed to get it to work. And so today I've got Amber Hawley and Maelisa Hall. Now, you probably remember, if you've been listening to the podcast, I had Maelisa on back in episode number 21. And Maelisa, you know her from QA Prep, and but she and her new, as they like to call it, biz bestie, Amber Hawley, have started another podcast. Well, actually, it's been around for a while, longer than this podcast, and it's called My Biz Bestie. And if you haven't listened to it, definitely go over and listen to it. I know I listened to it this past weekend when I was out in the yard doing some yard work, and they are just kindred spirits. I realized when I started listening to their story and their journey into private practice, that there was a lot of similarity with mine. But I'm so glad to have them with us today, and I hope that you'll find this just a lot of fun to listen to. And what we'll be talking about today is just about the importance of having supports and friends in your life that help you with your business, and just how they got started in their relationship and how that has grown into having some seminars and workshops and retreats that they do regularly with other like-minded people in this whole private practice space. So without further ado, here is Amber Hawley and Maelisa Hall. Well, folks, welcome again to the Practice of Therapy podcast. And I am so happy to have two guests with me today. This is the first time we've done this where I've had two people at the same time. But I think you're in for a big treat here. We've got Amber Hawley and Maelisa Hall. Now, Maelisa has been on a previous podcast, and so check that one out because she's just fun to get to know. And I'm just now getting to know Amber, and already I can tell we're going to have more fun than we deserve in this episode. But Amber is an LMFT. I'm happy about that. I'm an MFT as well, and she's the owner of Fremont Counseling Services, a group practice in the Bay Area. And you can find her at couplesfix.com. And then Maelisa, all know her as she is Dr. Maelisa Hall, is a licensed psychologist. And she says she's a nail design enthusiast. And she is the owner of QAPrep.com, which is another one of those great resources out there for practitioners. So welcome, you two. I'm glad you're here.
Yes, thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So Amber, tell us about yourself and kind of your private practice journey and how you've landed where you are. And then Maelisa, I'll let you do the same. And then we'll just have this conversation and have fun with it.
Great. Yeah. So I'm Amber Hawley. Like you said, I'm a LMFT in Fremont, California. I own a group practice called Fremont Counseling Services. I had started my practice almost 8 years ago as a solo practitioner right after being licensed. And then after 2 years, I was approached by one of my favorite people, Hawley, who became my intern. And then after that, I kind of got the bug for having employees. So I have both licensed and pre-licensed clinicians working for me. And we all have different specialties. So we serve the whole community or most of the community, I should say, in a sense, but we all have different specialties. Mine is couples counseling. So I have the Couples Fix is where I'm going to be offering relationship support for couples that isn't therapy. So for those people who either won't come in or as like a supplement for that, I work with a lot of high achieving couples. So that's my specialty. And in addition to that, Maelisa and I have a podcast together called the My Biz Bestie podcast. And we started that last year as our passion project because we have always had a really good business support system in having people around us. And she's my biz bestie. And we just see the value of it. And we keep hearing from people over and over how lonely they feel or isolated, or they wish they had people that they could just get feedback about business wise or kind of understand the struggles that they're going through because, running a business it can be great, but there's a lot of ups and downs. So we started that to help business people, specifically kind of women, but we have some biz bros in there too. So to help people find their business support system. Wow. And, so we're doing a lot. And prior to becoming a therapist, I was a .commer. So I have a lot of tech background. So we just love using, and Maelisa's very techie as well. So we love being able to help people in, both online and in person, building that support system.
Wow. That is quite a journey. Wow. So Maelisa, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I am the owner of QAPrep, which is a online training support for therapists. So I help therapists specifically with their documentation to make it a little bit more simple and hopefully more meaningful to their practice and the work they do with clients. And I know a lot of therapists really struggle with that. And we talked about that in a former episode. And then I have the podcast, My Biz Bestie podcast with Amber. And Amber and I have a lot of fun with it. And we've been doing so much. Just it feels like we've been doing it forever in one way. And then, in another sense, it's still so new. But over the last 6 months, it's been so much fun doing this with her and also sharing with other women mostly, but actually, I mean, a lot of other business owners, how they can find a support system. And we've met people who have started a mastermind group after like talking with us and getting some resources, or other people who have sought out a biz bestie or are now looking for something, or are planning their networking a little bit more strategically when they're at a conference. So all of those things have been amazing to see, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yes, yes. And tell us a little bit about how you guys met and how you got the Biz Besties started.
Yeah, so we met through an online book club. We were all reading a book together on money mindset. And it was like we didn't do a ton through the book club. It was funny because Amber and I didn't actually really talk to one another. It was a Facebook group that we had. And so like I knew who she was and saw her, you know, and you might go in and like reply to a comment or something, but there was no, you know, like significant relationship there at all. And then a smaller group of us in that book club decided to do a retreat together. So we all put in money and rented a giant house in Las Vegas. And yes, it's kind of funny talking about it now that like we all went to Las Vegas to do a productivity retreat. But,
oh, wow.
But we were epically productive.
Yes, we were.
Good.
And so we all planned this, you know, this trip, and we all went to Las Vegas together. There was a house, which was a massive, like baller type house, you know, it had like a pool table and all these different rooms and everything. But pretty much we all sat around this giant table with our laptops open, getting things done for a week. And we did take a break. Like we did do a spa day, and we had dinners together, and we had dance breaks, and we had fun. But we all got a lot of stuff done, and we all got very different things done. And all of us who attend that retreat, which we now do every year. So we're, in less than 2 weeks, we're going on our third one in a row.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And, all of us are therapists, actually. So we all are in different locations and do very different things, but all of us are therapists.
Wow. Wow. That's, it is so true that we tend to get isolated. I know one of the things that has been a big help for me just in my own journey has been the mastermind groups that I've been a part of. And I think, just knowing from experience and working with other people, and that whole idea of having a retreat and getting away and spending that face-to-face time has got to be just incredible.
Yeah, it really, I don't know, for people who've read the book, The E-Myth Revisited, which is a fantastic, to me, kind of classic business book that everyone should read.
Okay, I'll put that in the show notes.
He really talks in there. Yeah, it's a great one. And I listened to the Audible version because I have 3 children under 8. So,
yes.
You got to figure out ways to make those things happen,
right?
Right. But he really talks about how business owners need to learn, especially he calls us technicians, right? Those of us like we're technicians, we do therapy, and that's the business we provide, and he talks about the fact that what happens is technicians tend to work only in the business and not on the business. And so the beauty of these retreats are they give you a chance to step outside of your business and actually work on it. So we're working on our marketing, we're working on our offerings, our websites. Sometimes it's just self-care and time away, but time to connect with other business owners. And it really just depends, but it's been an amazing thing. And so we do that annual retreat for the whole week. And then we've been doing kind of like, unofficially, we've been doing kind of like quarterly, we call them mini GSDs, where we get stuff done. And so they've just been super valuable, because when we've done the mini ones, sometimes we'll go and we'll say, okay, let's work on SEO stuff. But usually we're all working on our own independent projects and just there to support each other. Right.
Right. How do you stay focused with stuff like that? I know we were talking about this just before we started recording, and just I know one of the things that you both have really kind of honed in on is being able to stay organized and stay focused with stuff.
Well, yeah.
Well, I use Adderall. Okay. Which I have to tell you. So when we met in Vegas, there are 9 of us now that go on this annual retreat, which is, I think too many more people and it would be really hard to focus. But at that retreat is where Maelisa told me she thinks I have ADHD. And I got diagnosed a few months later. So it was so eye-opening and helpful for me because I was struggling. I think, at the time of that retreat, I was dealing with some burnout and just a lot of stuff because I had a lot of things going on. But having that and then finding out, oh my gosh, I have ADHD, and now realizing, that's become kind of a specialty for me as well. And I feel like a lot of the high achieving couples I see, a lot of people tend to have ADHD who seek out this entrepreneurial journey. Right. Yeah. So it is a struggle. I'm not going to lie. Like I said, I have all these businesses and I have 3 young kids, but even before that, like it's something I have to put a lot of effort into.
Right. And it's, I know for me, people hear from me all the time, just staying organized is something I have to put a lot of effort into. And, so I kudos to you. Maybe, it might be a good idea for me to maybe get it checked out to see that as well for myself. It
was a game changer, because I was diagnosed shortly before Amber, and I mean, it was so helpful to find that out. And it's kind of funny because I used to do a lot of like learning disability assessments, and I've worked with kids, and like I was very familiar with ADHD, and yet, you can't see things for yourself a lot of the time. Right. And so when I was diagnosed, it was like this light bulb, like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Right.
Yeah.
And I think, I know for me, it really became more of an issue when I was working full time and had QA prep and was doing QA prep a lot. And I was commuting a lot, and it all of a sudden became too much. And I know when I had my private practice, I would work with a lot of people who had ADHD. And there was usually, for adults who were diagnosed, some kind of like catalyst, like having a kid is a big one, where there's something that pushes you over the edge where you're like, okay, now it's too much and everything starts to fall apart.
Right. Well, I just always remember back when I was in graduate school, one of the things that always stood in the back of my mind is that so many of us get into this realm of being mental health clinicians, just to deal with our own issues, and in terms of just really kind of understanding more about ourselves. And so, I think you might be onto something there.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think for Amber and I, that's been. I mean, not like neither of us were really cognizant of that beforehand, but I know it's made a big impact on like the way we have each worked with clients since finding out more, and has definitely pushed me to continue like growing and learning more about myself. And it's been so helpful to have Amber on this journey too. Like the fact that we were both diagnosed so close together and have a lot of similar struggles, but also have a lot of interests, and we are both pretty successful, and we are still really high achieving and get a lot of things done. So it's nice to have someone who understands that part of the journey. Right.
Well, I know that one of the things that, again, that we talked about before we started recording was just how important support is. And it sounds like you guys have really kind of developed a good way to do that through your retreats. And then what do you do besides the retreats to help with support?
Well, we talk every day.
Okay. Like for real.
Which, like we legitimately do. But her husband now, like every time the phone rings, he'll be like, bestie. He knows it's me. But I have a little siren. But yeah, I think, and we do talk about this on our podcast, that every every biz bestie relationship or biz bro relationship is structured uniquely. And you have to you have to know yourself and figure out what you need, what works for you, and kind of go from there. But for us, I mean, I like the high level of, being able to talk to her really frequently, because it's, I think because we do think about so many different things all the time and have great ideas, it's nice to be able to bounce those ideas off somebody and, get validation and support around that, even if we're not going to pursue them at the time. It also, I consider her a friend. Like, it's not just a business relationship. It's very much, she's a friend. So I share probably more than she wants to hear, when I'm irritated with other people or I'm having personal struggles, or the wins too. It's the fun stuff, when somebody, you can share all the cool things that are happening and somebody genuinely is excited for you.
Right.
So, we have in my opinion, we have the perfect blend of it. But I know for other people, the amount that we communicate might be too much for other people. And so you have to figure out what works for you, because and once a month, we've been now featuring other biz bestie relationships on our podcast. And we have a few that are coming up. And it's interesting. Like, there's this one biz bro relationship where they only meet once a year. Mm-hmm. So it's, they don't really chat otherwise. So, everybody does it differently, right? But yeah, I guess that's what I would say. Anything you want to add to that, Maelisa?
Yeah, I don't know. It is definitely different for every person. I don't know if I have any. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else to add to it other than, I guess, one of the things that Amber brought up recently. I think we were doing another interview. She said, that's the reason we talk a lot about personality tests and personality types on our podcast too. So especially like in season 1, because one part of being in a relationship with anyone, right? So those people who are in romantic relationships definitely understand this. Like, you also have to know yourself. And so the more you grow, even if you don't have a biz bestie relationship, or you're listening and you're like, that sounds really awesome, I want someone I can, chat with about all this stuff. Spend that time learning about yourself. So when those opportunities do appear, when it's a perfect fit, because you're like, oh yes, I know this about myself. This is what I need, or this is what I like, or this is what I enjoy.
Right. One of the things that just kind of an aha I just had is this whole concept of parallel processes. Just in supervision, when we're doing supervision for people in the licensure process, I'm an AAMFT approved supervisor. So one of the big things about that is really being in kind of a parallel journey with the person that's doing therapy, plus and the supervisor, just really kind of watching them do therapy and then processing things just in tandem. And one of the things that occurs to me about this whole support network is that what you're doing with each other really in many ways is very therapeutic. And in terms of and I think about people that are in private practice and they're maybe in a solo practice and they get isolated. Well, think about what happens to our clients when they get isolated. It usually doesn't go as well. So I think you're really on to something that's so important in helping people do well in private practice. I know, not to go on too much, but, I know one of the things that was a real game changer for me was when I started seeking out other people in private practice and really beginning that conversation and developing those relationships with those people. Just kind of like what I'm doing here with you guys. I mean, it really is a game changer.
Absolutely. And I think that's where we would suggest people start, right? Because, it's like anything, we often liken it to dating, but it's like anything where it takes time to develop those friendships. And occasionally, like Maelisa and I, we say we went pretty quickly into our friendship, and it's sometimes shocking how we haven't really known each other that long in the grand scheme of things, even though it feels different. But as Maelisa likes to point out, we spent 7 days together in house. So, and we were there we sat at that table like 12 to 14 hours a day. So we really, had a significant amount of time to connect and kind of start that the development of that friendship. But when I started my solo practice I started it in a city in Fremont. I had always worked elsewhere. I'd always worked in the South Bay because I'm in the Bay Area. So, it's like we're all pretty connected, but it can be further away. And I didn't want to commute because I had my first child and I didn't want to do that anymore. So I knew nobody in my area. And what I did is I started doing coffee dates, and I hosted a networking meetup, and I did that every month. And those were great ways to meet the local people and kind of build that support system. And I think it's like you start with that. And as you continue to see people, you develop those friendships like anything, and there are people you're like, no, never going to refer to them. Don't want to hang out with them. But then there's people where you're like, I really like this person. And, it grows over time. So you do have to put yourself out there to just start that process. I wholeheartedly agree with that.
And I think you continue doing that too. Like I'm even thinking of someone who I've been meeting with a little bit more regularly recently, and we've known one another online for years and just met in person like a few months ago. And the last few times we've gotten together to chat, like she and I have had such great conversations. And I've even like called Amber afterwards and been like, dude, we need to hang out with her, And so it makes me realize like it's a process that you continue. You don't just meet a couple of people and then that's it and you're done. Different people, Amber always says you have, friends for a reason, a season, and a lifetime. And I think Amber is one of those lifetime people, but you continue to meet those people throughout your life.
Yes. That is so true. I just think about the network of friends that I've developed over the years. And it's, I think not to sound, too presumptuous or whatever, but I think different friends kind of meet different needs in our lives, and I think that's very true. So,
absolutely. I mean, we talk about this to our clients, right? In counseling, like I'll talk to people about, if you think your spouse or your partner is going to be the person who fulfills all your needs, then you either don't have many needs or you're being unrealistic, because there are all those people, I have those friends where if I want to laugh, I'm going to call Melody and she's going to just crack me up. Right. And I'm going to call those people who, I'm going to say, oh, I want to do this new thing. I'm going to call the friend that I know will say, Amber, you need to slow down, because sometimes I know, like part of me knows I need to stop. But if I want to be encouraged, I'm going to call Maelisa.
Because I'll always be like, yes, let's do it.
You have those different people. Yeah. She'll be like, oh my God, that's the best idea ever.
That's great. Oh, that's great.
I think you do need that. You need more people. And here's the thing. We've been doing this a long time, and I think we just do it naturally. We're obviously extroverts. And we have so many layers of support system. We have our group of 9 women, which we call our mavens, and we have a private Facebook group. And so we're constantly sharing things that we don't want out in general Facebook land. And we're asking for feedback about business stuff or ideas or struggles or wins or whatever. And then I have Maelisa and I have, other biz bestie type people. And we have all of these layers of support, and yet we still continue to put ourselves out there, because you're right that I think it becomes stagnant if you don't continue to meet and grow. It's like sometimes you don't even know you have a need until you meet the right person.
Right. And it's so much easier to put yourself out there. I love that way of framing it. It's so much easier to do that if you know that you've got support. I mean, nobody wants to go into the woods alone. And so, having someone along is just makes it, and two, it's always better to get honest feedback from folks around things that you're doing and things that you're dreaming of and the places you want to go.
Yeah. And one thing I've noticed from like all of the interviews we've been doing and from chatting with other people is it does take that initial step of being like, oh, I'm going to ask this person if they want to have coffee, or I'm going to send this email and see if this person wants to go have lunch, or I'm going to, turn to the person to my left and say something, at this meeting or whatever. But most people that you meet are waiting for someone else to do that, and I think that can help if you're the type of person who gets a little bit nervous, whether you're shy or whether you're introverted. usually someone wants someone else to do it. So if you do it, most people are going to be happy. And, if they're rude or if it doesn't work out, it's not as likely to happen. But if it does, then you just move on and try the next person. But I've seen so many times where either I've done that or other people have done that, and it's turned into this wonderful thing, and you just never know, but you have to be willing to take that first step.
Yeah. And, sorry, I just kind of lost my thought. When Maelisa was talking about that, I wanted to point out that Maelisa and I don't live near each other, because I think that's another barrier that people put up is they say like, there's nobody in my area that's kind of like me. And, what are the things we're suggesting to our clients, right? We're telling them to get back on the horse, so to speak. And so Maelisa lives in Long Beach in Southern California, and I live in the Bay Area of California. And so we're about an hour flight away from each other, which is nice. So we get to see each other pretty often, but you don't have to, in this day and age, there are ways to really connect and have genuine relationships. You can ask someone to a virtual coffee.
Absolutely. Yeah, we were just talking about Zoom, and we were having a few technical difficulties with what we're using. And so we were talking about moving over to Zoom. And one of the things that has just become the norm is using those types of technology to connect and be with people.
Oh, yeah. There's really no excuse at this point. We have so many resources. It's kind of funny. Like Amber and I actually talk on the phone, which most of the people we've been interviewing don't. They use all these different forms of technology to communicate, whether it's like these voicemail apps that, you can download or other things online or texting or whatever. But we actually call one another. So I guess we're old school compared with everyone else, but there's so many ways you can do it.
We're old school.
It's kind of like the Adderall. If it worked, it works.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
So, well, you guys, it's been so great to talk with you all. So tell us real quickly about the retreats that you're having and some more about the Biz Besties and how people can get in touch with you and some of the things you've got coming up.
Sure. Did you want to say anything, Amber?
Sure. Do you want to take that?
Cool.
I love it. Well, so we do, like we said, we plan these. We have an annual retreat with the 9 women, all of us therapists, business owners, and that's coming up soon. And then we do these little mini ones because we realize not everybody's ready to prioritize or invest in themselves for a whole week, because I know that can be overwhelming as a business owner for some people. So we actually talk about these things in different podcast episodes. So over at mybizbestie.com or in any of the podcasts, Stitcher, iTunes, iHeartRadio, like we're everywhere where podcasts are played. But we do one about the little mini ones. So those are like the 3 to 4 day ones. We talk about 1 day ones as well. So we talk about the different structures and ways that you can do that to kind of give people good ideas. So you can go over there and check it out. We are going to be offering a couple different things coming up. We're going to be hosting a retreat for people. So that way people can just show up. They can meet other amazing, it's going to be for women. So meet other amazing business owner women. And we're going to be interviewing people to make sure like it's a good fit. And so you just show up and do it. You work on your projects or whatever you need to do, and we take care of the rest, and you get to connect with amazing women. So that'll be coming up in the fall. And then Maelisa, do you want to tell them about
our and we're also going to be putting together a training /workshop on networking. So that's one thing that Amber and I have discovered is one of our strengths and that we enjoy talking about. So we'll be giving some tips for how you can network, considering your personality type and what's comfortable for you, and also steps that you can, put yourself out there a little bit. So we want to give people like real life examples and real life advice on how that can look in any business.
Right. Wow, that's great stuff, and I'm going to put all of this in the show notes. And so I'm so glad that you all reached out to me to do this joint interview. It's been fun. I'm looking forward to getting to know both of you better here in the future. Maybe I can be one of your biz bros or something.
Absolutely.
For sure.
I think you have to be. I mean, once you started talking about parallel process, I was like, oh,
Okay.
you got to be part of our tribe.
All right.
I love that. No, it's been so fun. Thank you so much,
Maelisa, for being on the podcast, and I hope that we'll do it again. This is getting to be a habit, Maelisa. So we'll do it again.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right. Take care. You know, one of the mistakes I made early on in my private practice was I tried to do too much on my own. And I kind of learned, that's one of those lessons I learned the hard way, was trying to just do it too solo, if you will. And I know one of the big game changers for me was when I started reaching out to other people in private practice and really developing those friendships and really developing some of those biz besties, as Amber and Maelisa refer to them. And so it was just a game changer for me. Another way that we made just a little bit of a comment about in the podcast was mastermind groups. And if you're not familiar with mastermind groups, that's going to be one of the best ways to really kind of create those lasting friendships. I know for me and the mastermind group I'm involved in, it has been a game changer. I'm in a mastermind group with Joe Sanok, and it's just really changed the way that I've been able to not only grow my private practice, but also grow the practice of therapy and this podcast and all that I'm doing here with the practice of therapy. So if you're interested in becoming part of a mastermind group, shoot me an email at gordon@practiceoftherapy.com, and we'll just start that conversation. Hope to start some mastermind groups, or at least a mastermind group, later this year. And I've had a lot of people that have shown some interest in that. And it's just a great way to really connect with other people in private practice and really learn from each other. So take a look at that. You can also go to thepracticeoftherapy.com and just click on the mastermind link there in the menu. So find out more about that. And also as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, go over and take a look at practiceoftherapy.com/brightervision, especially if you don't have a website yet. They are the best solution for creating a website so that you don't have to do it all yourself, and you're not going it alone like has been the theme of this podcast here today. So thanks again, folks, for joining me. And if you're enjoying the podcast, I would really encourage you to go over and give it a review wherever you might listen to the podcast, especially on iTunes. Just click on one of the little stars and give us a rating, and also subscribe to the podcast. And that just makes it easier for people to find the podcast by boosting the ratings of the podcast. So take care, folks, and we'll be joining you. We've got a milestone coming up, episode 30 coming up, and the next episode. So tune in for that. Take care, folks. You have been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer. Please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com for more information, resources, and tools to help you in starting, building, and growing your private practice. If you haven't already, please sign up to receive the free private practice startup guide at practiceoftherapy.com. The information in this podcast is intended to be accurate and authoritative concerning the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, guests, or producers are rendering legal, accounting, or clinical advice. If you need a professional, you should find the right person for that.